What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Youth Ministry with Josh and Caleb, where we keep it real, we keep it raw, we keep it relevant for those of you who are in the trenches with youth ministry every single week. Once again, we're your host. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Caleb. What's up, Caleb?
Wow. Wow. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's good to be here like always. And listen, we have this topic today. Man, I feel like this is one that we don't talk about enough. And it's one that kind of is like kind of a given. We're just kind of there. And we just assume that everybody knows the same page because it happens all the time. But it can be a true game changer if it's done correctly.
Absolutely. And today's episode is titled Faith on the Go. How do we integrate evangelism on non-spiritual trips? And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wait, what do they mean by non-spiritual trips? I mean, going to Six Flags, going to a Braves trip, going kayaking for 10 miles, the overnight lock-in at a trampoline park. All those fun events that aren't necessarily your typical devotional or worship nights. They're not overly spiritual, but they can be deeply impactful for the kingdom if you've got the right mindset. Sorry.
My bad, Josh.
No, you good. You good. You're good.
Nice voice crack. Anyway,
Man, that's going to be in there. Call me out today.
And I think this is where a lot of people and chaperones and volunteers and maybe even students miss an opportunity. And it's because it's a lack of intentionality, right? We spend so many hours and so much time coordinating these trips. We're booking hotels. We're doing these games. We're doing the vans. We're coordinating the tickets, getting the drivers, getting everybody situated on a van or a bus or whatever. In the middle of that chaos, and then you've got the whole, hey, am I leaving somebody somewhere? Like in the middle of that chaos, sometimes those moments can plant seeds for God to give increase to. And they can open doors for conversations that don't typically maybe happen. And so today's talk is practical. It's real conversations about the practicality of how can I have a spiritual conversation? How can I integrate my spiritual life into a trip that's not necessarily focused solely on spiritual growth, if that makes sense.
It does.
But we can't force it. You know what I mean? Without making it weird, how can we do it? And it happens naturally. And so that's what today's episode is all about.
Yeah, and there's trips. Hell, I just gave myself the biggest splinter on my desk. That hurt. Ouch. You know how you get the ones that go right under your fingernail?
Did that just happen?
It just happened. Yeah, that's staying in there, by the way. That's real content for you. But these kind of this episode is really meant to talk about how we can integrate that, because sometimes you have people that come on trips that never go to church. You don't see them in class. We're taking our trip to Atlanta in July, and I have 26 kids going. I have 18 in my youth group. A lot of them, I don't know who they are, but they're coming on our trip. So let's start with this, though. It's all about the mindset. If you go into a non-spiritual trip thinking this is just for fun, then it probably will just stay like that. But if you approach it thinking, hey, this is kingdom ground, this is discipleship in motion, then all of a sudden your eyes are open to the many possibilities. I'm talking about the conversations that happen on a bus ride. You know how many great conversations happen on a bus ride? A lot. Daggum, my finger hurts now. Good grief. But the way you model patience in a very long line, right? The talks that you have getting ready to get on the Goliath. The moment a student opens up with you while they're waiting for a funnel cake. You know, that's where evangelism lives. The smallest talks can go the furthest way.
And, that's typical of teenagers, right? Sometimes teenagers don't want to have a confrontational conversation, right? And so they're more open to conversation outside of the church building, outside of the walls of the youth room or the youth minister's office or wherever. you know, and the reason for that is the pressure's off, right? You're in public. You have people who are you crying?
No, I'm not crying, but this is really hurts. It went underneath my fingernail and I can't get it out.
Goodness, ooh.
Continue.
Um, and so like the pressure's off. You're in public. There's an opening. All of this stuff, and this is where you could honestly probably drop the conversation and drop the question of, or the kid may, what happens when God doesn't feel like he's listening to me? Or
Oh, wait. How do you feel like when God isn't listening to me?
yeah, when God, how do I feel when God's not listening to me?
Sorry. I didn't understand it at first.
Or how do I talk to my friends about Jesus without being weird or confrontational or whatever? And if we're too focused on the logistics, if we're too focused on the itinerary of boom, boom, ba boom, ba boom, we're going to miss that. We're going to miss those conversations. And if we're too focused on the logistics of just having fun, or I'm so focused on getting on Goliath for the second time without having to get off of the ride itself, which Josh and I have done, by the way.
I think you mean sixth time.
Oh, or sixth time. My bad. We can miss a moment that can lead to lifelong discipleship.
Let's get practical for a second. Here's the question. How do you plan these kind of trips with evangelism in mind without making it feel like a bait or a switch?
Oh, okay. So this is great.
Sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want your kids thinking this statement. Okay, there's pizza, and now we're going to have a sermon.
Right? Isn't the whole purpose of Friends Day Wednesday?
Well, kind of.
I lured you here. Eat the pizza. Now listen to me talk.
I'm just kidding. But what you can intentionally do is schedule time for connection, for fellowship, where you're on your way back to an event and you're stuck on a church bus and the Bluetooth radio magically gets turned off, right? And it
how many times
work.
have we actually done that?
Well, that's actually
guilty.
that's fun. Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry, it's not working.
No more of boom boom pow.
Right? And so you set a time on the bus for a little reflection. All right? Or you just pull your room, whomever you're rooming with, and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or you say a prayer at breakfast. You say a prayer at lunch, at dinner. When that happens, when you open that conversation with, hey, guys, let's pray. God can take it from there. God can use that moment for his glory. And it can happen in the simplest of things like, hey, what was your favorite part of the trip?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, will you pray with me? That sort of thing. It's about, ultimately, it's about being Christian, right? It's about living out your faith. It's about, hey, I'm supposed to be a Christian. I'm supposed to act different from the world. And so here's me doing that. Yeah. That's how it's about.
I love integrating little, I guess you would call them God siding moments, like kind of making it just casual. Does that make sense? God sightings.
Like, or maybe just like living like a Christian. Is that what you're saying? Or is it more...
like living like a Christian moments.
Okay.
Like, and what I mean by that is like asking the kind of questions like, where did you see God at work today?
Okay.
You're downtown Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you see happen today? Someone might just say, well, when the lady at the concession stand went out of her way to help us. I mean, that's it. How many times do some of our, it is a real thing. How many times do our kids not have enough money? And sometimes people are like, oh, I'll take care of that. Like, it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened. Or, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but every so often I'll be on a trip and I'll see people in front of them. I did it on a youth trip the other day. Someone didn't have enough money. It was from an opposite youth group, had no clue who they were. And I just walked up and I tapped my card on the thing and said, y'all have a good day. And they're like, why'd you do that? And my kids are like, Josh, why'd you do that? It's like, show a little bit of kindness. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's not me. That's God showing kindness, showing love, using God's love. It's not trying to earn God's love because we already have God's love. We have to use God's love. Or maybe when we all started singing in the van, Disney stuff, or maybe we started, most of the time it's Disney, but I don't know about you. When I was in youth group, we used to sing church songs all the time on the bus.
Yeah.
And we sounded sometimes awful. I'm just being honest. Sometimes we sounded awful because we're in a bus going down the highway. It's loud.
And you get road noise.
Huh?
And you got your road noise.
You got your road noise, and you got the people that are trying to sing louder than everybody else. And also, you have the seats in front of you, so like it's being like a dampener and all that. It's like you have people in the back singing super loud, and you have people in the front that are singing like half a beat behind the people that are in the back.
Yep.
But you know what? It don't matter. Nobody cared about how we sounded. Well, our youth ministers probably cared about how we sounded. But you know what? It's okay. That opens the door for deeper faith conversations without having to pull out your Bible and preach a sermon on the spot.
And listen,
those small things.
Absolutely. And your chaperones need to be invested in this conversation too.
Agreed.
Right? Here's the thing. Your trip is as good as your chaperones are. Yes. Chaperones will make or break the trip. And it's based on their attitude. It is based on how they are acting on the trip. And so if the chaperones are invested in this kind of idea, it's a ministry thing. It is a discipleship thing. They don't have to preach it. They don't have to force it. It just happens.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm about to do this. That's where a real talk happens.
Bro, I see what you did there.
Ministry. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. That was kind of cool.
That's where that happens. Is when you're authentic. You're not faking this. You're not forcing this. It is something that just happens because you're called to live different. Yeah. Right? Romans chapter 12 says, don't be conformed, but be transformed into the image of God. Right?
That's verse 2.
That's verse 2. And so that's the point. If we're living like that, if we're actively living like we are being transformed into the image of his son, then this whole conversation is easy and it's real. It's raw. It's not forced.
Instead of being conformed to the world.
Exactly.
And I think, I'm gonna cut you off for a second. I don't mean to cut you off on your going. But how easy is it for our kids just to stoop down to somebody else's level? How easy is it for them just to try to fit in? Mm-hmm. Because they don't want to be different, right? I don't know about you. I'm going to speak for myself on this. I'm different. I'm weird, okay? And I know I am. But here's the thing. I never tried to fit in. Maybe I did for a little bit, but I was my own person. Mm-hmm. Did that make me sometimes not likable? Yeah, I knew it. It's okay. But I keep telling my kids all the time, don't try to fit in with other people. And we've said it on this podcast before. Don't follow the crowd.
Yeah.
Lead your crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Lead your crowd. So,
and here's the thing, Josh. Kids aren't they're not dumb. I mean, they're not, I mean, okay. But
to an extent, they're not dumb.
Right. They can spot something fake. And this adults, chaperones, older people, whoever's listening, hear me when I say this. The thing that teenagers in this generation are super good at is spotting authenticity or
English.
fakeness like that.
Fake news.
Right? They are so quick to see it. You don't listen. So when you're kind,
I'm sorry.
Wow, thank you.
I'm sorry.
So guess what? Hey, bus driver, when someone cuts you off, the kids are going to see it. And how you react, they're going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guess what? The Chick-fil-A is closed for the upteenth time for training. Guess what? The kids are going to see how you act. Guess what?
They watch you.
The church is going to see what you post on Facebook. Okay? Listen, you want to see something about somebody being a Christian, just go look at their Facebook timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, if your Facebook timeline, and I'm sorry, I've got to do this real quick. If your Facebook timeline is more about negativity than it is positivity, there's probably something wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, it just got real quick.
There is something wrong. And
I agree.
you cannot expect to bring in spiritual components to your family or your spiritual to non-spiritual trips if all you're putting out for the public to see is negativity.
I agree.
You're just not going to. So be real.
It's because everybody's watching you, though.
Yep.
Everybody's watching your every single move. You know, I tell the kids all the time in the youth group, what you post matters. How are you using social media? You know, we talked about that in a couple episodes back. Mm-hmm. Use it for good. Don't use it for bad. And I agree. There's a lot of people on Facebook. I try to not get on Facebook a lot anymore. Right. I really do. Because most of the time you're on there and people are ranting. Most of the time people are just ranting or upset about something. And it is what it is. But we're going to move on from that. Here's the thing that I've learned, though. If I can take anything that I've learned from ministry, and I've only been in ministry for just short of a year. I think I'm at 10 months, 9 or 10 months in my actual job. But I've been around ministry for years. I mean, I've done 3 internships. I've done this ministry, and then of course watched my dad be a minister for 15 years. But if there's one thing I've learned, is that evangelism is more about who you are than what you say. That's what I think. If our students see us living out our faith authentically, with joy, with patience, with kindness, with self-control, they take note. Mm-hmm. That speaks louder than anything, because, like I said just a second ago, people are watching your every move. Every single time you make a decision, the way you talk to others, the way you stand up for what is right, instead of just sitting there and following the crowd and going down a path that you know is not right. It may be fun for a second, but it always comes with a cost.
Yep.
They are always watching your every move. Parents are the same ways. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a teenager, if you're a youth minister, if you're a parent, if you're a chaperone, if you're a volunteer. Everyone is watching your every move. As youth ministers, as both of us, if we're not being authentic and we're just faking it until we make it, is what I like to say, what is that saying to our kids? Yeah. You know, what are we doing for ourselves?
Right. And Josh, that's how evangelism works without a mic. Mm-hmm. You know? And sometimes it's those little moments that lay the foundation for their spiritual house. Mm-hmm. Right? And you're planting seeds. We are to be the sower in the parable of the sower. Just throwing seeds freely, liberally, whatever adjective you want to use to describe that motion of planting seeds any and every opportunity that I can. Mission. It's about the mission. And what is your mission? To go and make disciples who make disciples. That's the mission. Everybody belongs. Everybody's on the same equal playing field. So throwing those seeds liberally to whomever wants to hear, because there's good news. And that good news is that you don't have to live the way that you're living. There's something better. And that something that is better is Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that's a message that everybody wants to hear.
Yeah. I agree.
And so, Josh, let's get just a quick little personal. When have you seen this work?
Okay. I feel like I need to talk about this because this man has affected a lot of people. Phil Robertson. I don't know if you know him. I don't know if you watched him growing up on Duck Dynasty, but I did. And Phil is an amazing person. I don't know if you watched his movie called The Blind. It tells about his story, about how he came from nothing he got married to Miss K early on, then, got in trouble with a lot of things, had an affair, blah, 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 blah. Phil always, they did the big show, Duck Dynasty,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're making a show, you're not necessarily integrating faith. You're just telling your life, right? But I was watching something. Every single time you would hear something that Phil said, Phil would always say, it's never going to work without this. And he would always hold up his Bible. It's never going to work without this. And I think about that sometimes when it comes to youth ministry. Your trips are never going to work without the Bible. Just because we're at a Braves game, right? You're at a packed house. You have a lot of crazy energy and all that. Acuna just comes back and hits a home run, something like that. And you have a middle schooler that comes up to you, and this may happen. Hey, Josh, why do you think, Jesus used stories so much? And you're going to be sitting there going, bro, are you really about to talk about parables in the seventh inning stretch? Like, are you kidding me? But it can happen. It can happen. And us as youth ministers just have to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're at a Braves game, but you're a youth minister and your kids come first. And here's the thing. Phil always did that. Phil always made time for the gospel. Once he finally got his life together, and he tells his story. I don't know if you've ever heard his story, but he was very open with it about how his faith changed him.
Mm-hmm.
But he always integrated spiritual stuff into a non-spiritual setting. If he's out there working on his land and he has a person come and work with him, he always talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be the same way.
Absolutely. So, Josh, for the second week in a row, let's land this plane.
That is my line. You didn't answer the question either. Have you had an experience or an example for this?
I think more of this comes with me with my interns. I have 2 interns. I had 2 interns last year. I had an intern my very first summer. I had 2 interns last year, and I have 2 interns this summer. And all 5 of them have been super stellar people. They're great people. They're hard workers for the Lord, and they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I get 10 weeks to pour into people. And this is going to sound really weird because I work in a church building, but that's not necessarily that's not necessarily a spiritual event. Does that make sense? Like, I come to work, you know? And so I
Can I help you? Hey, I'll come out there in a second. Okay. That's a shout out to one of my youth kids.
And so, like, I go to work. I don't necessarily. It's weird, I know, right? But on the days that they're here during the summer, I get to pour into them, and I get to have a spiritual conversation that sometimes may not be a spiritual conversation. Prime example: today, me and my interns, we are on a mission to find the best burger place in Jackson, Tennessee.
My interns and I.
And my interns and I are
the best burger place in Jackson is Five Guys, whether you like it or not.
And it's false. And so we are on it. It can't be a chain. Here's the requirements. It cannot be a chain, and it cannot be a fast food restaurant. Okay.
Oh, so go to Dave's Burger Barn in Savannah, or Pickwick.
Okay. Well, it's just Jackson.
Oh, okay.
It's just Jackson. We're gonna find it. All right. And today we had one. That burger was so good.
Where was it?
So good. Do what?
Where was it?
Like downtown Jackson. And I'm forgetting the name of it already. But it was so good. Like the onion rings did not like fray. It was a crunch. It was so good. But anyway, the point being is
big bag.
The point being is, on things like that, on the way up there, we had a spiritual conversation, and one that was awesome.
Yeah.
And we were just going to get a burger, and that's how it's done. So, yeah.
As we start to land this plane, don't separate fun from faith.
That's right.
I don't think you need to do that. Yes, there are going to be some trips that are not really spiritual based. Here's another example. We're going kayaking at the end of July for 10 miles. Sometimes that's the best time to have a spiritual talk. Let's just be honest. I mean, ministry doesn't end when that bus starts rolling or when the tickets start getting scanned. Every trip, every event, every silly memory is what?
Or when you stop paddling.
Or when you stop paddling, yeah. Every single memory is a chance to reflect the light of Christ. If we just open our eyes.
And listen,
every chance we have.
That's right. And you don't have to be professionally trained in ministry to do this.
No.
Right? You just need to be a parent.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be available. You need to be a person. You don't just have to be a parent. You have to be a person. Scratch all of that. You need to be a Christian. You need to be a Christian who's been convicted. A follower of Jesus. And you love people. And you show up for people.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep Jesus at the center of who you are. And they'll see that. And people will see that. Whether you're in the pool or a pew or the church bus.
That's fair. Well, that pretty much wraps up our episode. That's how do we integrate spiritual life or evangelism on a non-spiritual trip. So faith on the go is really kind of what the episode was. Don't miss the mission just because you're not in the church building. You have every moment to be able to do it. Jesus went to the people. And sometimes that means we minister from the back of a roller coaster line or in the front seat of a church bus or in a kayak going down the Buffalo River. So it doesn't matter. Use the chances wisely. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow. Make sure you share this episode with somebody that probably needs it, or your church family, or your youth team. And as always, keep it real, keep it rooted, and keep it rolling. This has been Real Talk Youth Ministry with keep paddling. This has been Real Talk. This has been Real Talk Youth Ministry with Josh and Kaleb. We'll see you next time. Habakkuk!